Hello, welcome. My name is Ramses van Zan, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the International HPC Summer School and what it is and why you might want to apply. So the question is, are you a grad student or postdoc in Canada that wants to take their HPC skills to the next level? And not just in any environment, but would you like to share your experiences with your international peers, especially if you're doing HPC in a computational research group? You might be one of the few people doing the computational part, so it would be interesting maybe to meet similar people in similar situations. And maybe you're not quite sure where HPC can take you in your career. And if any of these questions apply to you, you might want to apply to the 15th International HPC Summer School. So there's an HPC Summer School annually organized around the world. This coming year, the current year, it will be held in Lisbon, in Portugal, from July 6th to July 11th. So just to put this in a bit of a context, when you're doing computational research, you require specific skills that you might not have learned as part of an academic curriculum, especially not if it involves computing at large scale, where the resources are scarce and performance matters. So there is training done that will help you get those skills in the advanced research computing centers all around Canada and even around the world. And so if you're not quite aware of this, the different centers in Canada, like SciNet is one of those where I am, but there's others in the different provinces and different organizations. Many of them post their events in the Federation training calendar. So I can put a link to the PDFs later at the end of the slide of the talk, but go to the Alliance site and go to the Federation training calendar, and you can see the calendar of all the events. And we're working on a better way to do this. But anyway, but that exists. Many of them are virtual. Some of them are in person, but they are still just within Canada. So in this training landscape of different training opportunities that you might have, the International HPC Summer School has a special place, and partly because it's international, but what is it? So it is an expenses-paid in-person training event, and it aims to bring together experts in HPC computing and big data analytics with the students that need that expertise. And what's unique to this particular school, you don't really find this in most other training events, is that there is a very strong mentoring component. So there's not just students coming and they sit in a classroom and they hear about technical topics. They're also partnered with a mentor, typically on a 3-to-1 ratio, and give mentoring advice to not just technical aspects, but also aspects of their study or careers or HPC or whatever you might want to talk about. So this IHPCSS, or the International High Performance Computing Summer School, so as I said, this will be given in Lisbon, in Portugal, and it's a week-long event, and it's in person, so you'd have to fly there, and it's quite intensive, so they keep you really busy throughout the days. And it's sponsored this year, and hopefully future years as well, by the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. So it's international. People from all around the world are coming there, but the ones that come from Canada would have to be sponsored by the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. There's a website here, so you can get more information on what it is afterwards. Who would we like to see apply to this school? For who is this really intended? So what is the target audience here? So it's mostly students, graduate students, maybe early postdocs at Canadian academic institutions, which makes sense from a funding perspective, I guess. But it's for those of you that are involved in code development. So you want to run on advanced research computing clusters, do HPC. This is really a school for people that are involved with the development of the code. That means to be able to come, you'd have to have some experience with programming, some experience with HPC. If you're already an expert, that you're not the target audience because you already know what we would teach you. But if you're, that's why it's really meant for starting early career grad students or postdocs. But it really depends on your level of where you're at and where you need to go, whether this is for you. So one really important part in the selection process, which we'll explain in a little while, is whether the skills that you would learn are actually useful for you in their research. And when I show the numbers, you will understand why we have to be a bit more targeted like that. The school is restricted to people that are selected. And we will select about 10 students or students and postdocs from Canada. And so there's an application and a selection process. That's 10 from Canada. The total number of students that will be there is roughly 80, 85, something like that. But in addition, as I said, there's this mentorship program. And so about 25 mentors are coming as well. Those are either the instructors of the different sessions or people that just come as returning mentors or people that were at the event before. And so it's a really nice ratio of mentors, so experts versus students. And the idea is not that you just stick to the mentor that it was assigned to you. You can talk to all the mentors because they have different perspectives. But because it's only 10, we have to select. We have opened the application already. So if you haven't applied yet, that you still can. But we have already about 30 applicants. So there is a selection process there. And this is why we want to select those for which this has the most impact. And that's where it is, can you use your skills? So if you're just interested in HPC, but you're not going to use it, that's not, I mean, that's not what this is for. But if you're, if you're, all of these three apply, you're involved in some sort of code development, you don't have to be the expert of the code development, but you know a bit of C or Fortran or C++. That's who we need here. So if you come in with that, what are you going to be taught? What are the technical topics? And it's a fairly wide range. This is how it becomes quite an intensive program. There's a session on shared memory parallel programming. So if you parallel program on a single node of a cluster where each of the cores in the node can see the same memory, that's shared memory parallel programming. Distributed memory programming, when you really have to scale up to several nodes in a cluster, that will be also covered. GPU programming is covered as well. So and then because it's aimed at at performance analysis and optimization is also a topic. But there's also more general topics like software engineering, how to use numerical libraries in your code, and this has been growing rapidly in the last few years. There's a good chunk of the school devoted to big data and machine learning. Not a lot to neural networks because they really deserve their own whole school, but other aspects of machine learning and big data analytics are covered. There's some scientific visualization. There is HPC infrastructures. So as I will show in the next slide, there's a wide range of organizations that come together to organize this event. And each of them have their own local infrastructures. And when I mean local, it could be like Europe-wide or Canada-wide, right? So those infrastructures are also discussed. So if you're interested in what is available in other jurisdictions, to use a fancy word. So one of the nice aspects of this is the international community that you reach if you're part of the International HPC Summer School. And this happens because it's actually a collaborative organization. So there's quite a few organizations taking part in this. From the EU, there's the Euro HPC Joint Undertaking, which is the successor of PRAISE. If you've ever heard of PRAISE, this is the successor of that. So all the EU countries take part in that context. From the US, at this point, the funding comes through the University of Illinois and the University of Texas. So that's where NCSA and TEC are. TEC is one of the advanced computing centers. In Japan, they have a Riken Center for Computational Science that's involved in the organization. From the Canadian side, it's the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. So that's us. And that would be who would sponsor you if you apply as a Canadian or as a person in a Canadian institution. Australia is part of the club as well. Palsy Supercomputing Center in Australia is sending some of their students. South Africa is sending students. And from the UK, the Edinburgh Center, EPCC, is also sending some students. And so each organization in this collaborative organization selects their own participants. So there's a selection process. There's a single point where you apply, but then those applications are split up, given to the different organizations to select their own students and also to fund their own students. And there's a question here. Hold on. Yeah, so if you apply, you are just computing for the spots of your region. So for us, for Canada, so there's 10 spots. If there turns out to be 50 applicants, then from Canada, that's who you're competing with. And I'll explain a little bit more how that goes in a second. To give you an idea of what the program looks like and also what the applicants look like. So the pictures on the left here are actually the top one is from 2015 when we had the school in Toronto. Those of you that are in Toronto would recognize where this is probably. It was in Atlanta the year in 2023, and then in Japan in 2024. So those are some of the shots. So you can see it's roughly 120 people altogether. Yeah, so a typical agenda, and this is sort of a hodgepodge of past agendas to give you a flavor of how it looks. So it starts on the Sunday afternoon. So the idea is you probably come in either Sunday morning, or maybe if you want to be more refreshed and you want to arrive in Portugal the day earlier. Then there's a reception and orientation. So they explain the school to you, they explain the mentoring. They might introduce what's called a programming challenge. So throughout the school, this is an optional part, but if you want to try your skills that you're learning, or as you're learning them on a programming challenge, then that's running. And then other than that, Sunday is pretty let's say chill. So you could arrive on Sunday. It's not a heavy program, and then you either do something in the evening on your own, or you decide to rest. On Monday morning, it starts typically with a keynote. So usually that's from the local organization. So we'll see. We haven't, as I said, finalized the agenda yet completely. So some things are yet to be determined. And then we'll do things like testing accounts for whatever cluster we have access to use. And then in the lunch, you're already meeting with your mentors. So the mentor group lunch means you're meeting 1-on-3 with the other mentors in your group and the designated mentor. And those are matched based on interests. So the mentors have to fill out something and say, these are my areas of expertise, or this is what I want to talk about. And then the applicants, or sorry, the registered students will say what they would want to talk about, and there's a matching process. So mentoring starts really quickly. Then there's parallel tracks for OpenMP with CPUs and advanced MPI. So there's too much to put in a single track, so you'd have to choose. And it really depends on probably your level as you're coming in. If you come in with a lot of with MPI knowledge and you want to get ahead on advanced MPI, you take that one. If you haven't had that yet, you might want to start with the OpenMP track. There's also posters. So all the students will present a poster. The poster is electronic. No need to print it. You bring it on your laptop. But if there's 80 participants, you can imagine there's a lot of posters. So it's actually in 2 parts, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. And so then Tuesday, the parallel tracks on parallel programming for GPUs and for advanced MPI continue. Wednesday, there might be some topics on how to use Python and HPC. There might be some topics on software engineering. There's more mentoring. You can now meet your mentor one-on-one. There's probably a panel discussing current events in HPC, or might even be two panels. And then there's typically a social event happening in the evening. Anyway, we'll have to see what is getting organized for that, but there's typically one event that is covered, and so you'll see something of, I guess, Lisbon. So the posters here are presented by the participants. So the organizers will also present their organization and what are the available resources. I think that probably happens on a Monday. It did not fit on the slide, but it's the participants that presents it. And if they do it like last year, there's 80 posters. They're split up in 4 groups. So there's 20 posters at one time, so that as a student, you will be able to see at least 60 out of the 80 of the other posters. There's, trying to get as much out of that as we can. Thursdays might be where we start with big data and machine learning, and depending on how we do it, this might bleed into the Friday. There's might be a session on software engineering. Actually, there will be. I don't know. It will be on Thursday. And then there's typically a resource fair. So that is a general term where the mentors, rather than being attached to particular students, sit at a table for a particular topic. So it could be career planning, could be switching fields, could be two-body issues, could be and then you can go around the room and talk to the different mentors that have different things to say, depending on what you're interested in. Yeah, then Friday, maybe there's scientific visualization and some more performance, and there's probably a closing ceremony. What will happen where is to be determined, but that's kind of the fullness of the program that you would sign up for if you accept. Okay, so suppose that you're now, of course, you're all very enthusiastic now, you want to apply. And so where do you apply? There's a single point, ss25.ihpcss.org is where you would go. And then there's a link going to the application site. So that's actually /application. And it's essentially a Google form. So there's a whole bunch of questions that they will ask you. Things like, give us a research abstract. Remember, you want to see that this is applicable, that the skills that you will learn are applicable to your research. Why do you want to participate? So you have to sort of motivate yourself. How interested are you in the different topics that are taught in the school? Now, that can also give us an idea of the balance between, say, GPU and MPI or something like that. Your experience with computational science, programming, and HPC. And as I said, it's not necessarily that we pick the most experienced people because they already know what we're going to teach. We want to see who can use the extra knowledge. The application deadline is January 31st. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Keep that in mind. Yeah, so that all goes into, well, for us on our side, a spreadsheet. They get separated out into the Canadians and the other regions, and we get them sent. And so after that, we started a review process. And so one thing that we do, and we've learned that that's really good to do, probably done it for about 5 years now, is to take these applications, which obviously would have your name on it, and strip the name, strip your gender, strip what university you're from, and send them to at least 2 reviewers that way. And that's just to forego any kind of unconscious bias or we just want them to be reviewed on the merit of their reviews. There's no need for references or anything like that. We look at the reviews as is. 2 reviewers, because hopefully they will say roughly the same sort of scoring. If that's the case, that's fine. But if not, that's something to look at. So what happens with those reviews is they result into a ranking. So you get a ranking from the most qualified to come to the least, I guess. Um, and what we do is we just invite the top, in this case, 10 applicants, and that will happen around early March. So if you have already submitted it, and you're wondering when are you going to hear something, it's going to be early March because it takes a little while to do the reviews. Um, the quite a few reviews to go through and quite a few topic things to look at. Okay, let me check that. If it's Friday, then maybe I just copied this wrong. It is January 31st though, so yeah, so Friday. Sorry about that. It was probably Wednesday last year, and I copied this wrong. So it's definitely the 31st, the end of the end of the month. And it's because it's international, if it's still January 31st anywhere on Earth, then the deadline hasn't gone yet. Okay, so if you're selected after that, you'll be informed. We'll tell you how to register. You have to accept, because if you change your mind or something comes up and you can't make it, and you tell us, we can just invite the next person on the ranked list. That makes the ranking very useful, and that way we don't end up with empty spots. And now they'll tell you about how to register, and then if you're selected, expenses will be paid for you. The way it works for the Canadian participants is that you would book your own travel, but the hotels, most of the meals, because there's some free time when there's no meals, and the hotel accommodation during the event will be covered and will be billed directly to the Alliance. But your travel expenses will be reimbursed later. So that's something you'll have to do. There might be a cap. I don't know exactly how we're doing that yet, but anything reasonable, economy class travel to Lisbon. So that's how it goes. And so we're equally awaiting all of your applications. It's actually very interesting, even for reviewers, to see what people are up to. So the reviewers are typically staff from the different centers in Canada. So people that do know a little bit about HPC, and they know what to. They've been given the guidelines on how to rank things. Okay. So in conclusion, the International Summer School is an international expenses paid training event sponsored by the Alliance on HPC held in Lisbon, Portugal, July 6 to 11 this year. If you want to apply, go to the website ss25.ihpcss.org. Apply by January 31st. If you have any questions, I mean, you can ask them now, obviously, but if you have questions later, here's an email that we set up so that you can write, and it goes to the working group that is actually taking care of the International Summer School for Canada. So it's IHPCSS again at gw@alliancecan.ca. If you want to see a little bit of how it went, I found a few YouTube videos, one from 2018, so that's a bit long ago, but in any case, it was in the Czech Republic then, and they made a nice video on sort of an overview of what happened. And if you want to see a testimonial of an Australian participant from last year, I believe there's a link to it here as well. And they are all very happy with it. So yeah, I hope you'll consider applying. Apart from filling out the form, there really isn't much to it. If you have any questions, let me know. So the area, it's not the area of expertise that we particularly select for. So you could be a physicist, you could be a biologist, you could be doing psychology. But if you're involved in code development, because it is really meant for people that are doing code development in HPC, so some sort of large scale computations, and you know a little bit of a compiled language at least, because that's what's being used in many of the sessions. And then the most important criteria is really, can you use the skills that you would learn in your research? So it really isn't by research field at all, which is it's really nice to see the diverse different fields come together and have a place to talk about their computational sides, which you might not have opportunity to do in your specific in conferences on your specific field. Ah, good question. It varies. The more you advertise, the more you get, but it could be anywhere between 80 and 200.
Okay.
So it's but you know it's a good opportunity, but some applicants just want a trip to Portugal. So those are pretty weeded out, right? So
Right.
yeah, so about half of them are probably we typically end up, I would say, with realistically a 1 in 3 chance. Like we will have probably about 30 really good candidates. That's a typical number. Yeah, so there's no cohort for specific fields of research. Um, yeah, no. So and to be honest, the numbers are really too small to make cohorts with 10 students. What we will do, though, what we do pay attention to is um, gender balance, and just we want to make sure that there's no implicit balance. So we already strip off the gender, and usually that's enough. And were there any questions, James?
None in the chat.
Okay, right. So if you have more questions, as I said, you can email. Oh, I have to. You can email the this particular one. About 4 people are looking at that email, so somebody will get back to you with any further questions, any further answers. So that's it. Thank you for being here and for your interest, and I look forward to seeing your applications.